it really seems as though we're trending towards a starting lineup where Scottie Barnes is your point guard. You put him with Gary Trent, OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam, Jakob Poeltl. Three non-shooters, relatively speaking. Poeltl can't shoot. Barnes not great. Siakam's inefficient. OG's non-movement. Gary Trent's a great movement shooter. I see big changes coming to his game playing with Darko Rajakovic. Balance out the bench. Dennis Schroeder as your point guard there with Dick, McDaniels, Porter, and one of them, Boucher or Achua. That's like your 10-man rotation. That's like your 10-man system right there. But Scottie Barnes in the point guard position. I've been against Scottie Barnes playing in the point guard role, and we'll elaborate on that. But what about Darko's coaching style can allow Scottie Barnes to be at his best in the position and get this team as close to their ceiling? For starters, on Scottie Barnes, why do I not want him to be the point guard for his team? I think in this situation, out of necessity, what makes the most sense for this roster and the way it's currently built is Scottie Barnes the starting point guard. But that's more so out of necessity rather than wanting to play Scottie Barnes in that position. Because I think the best way for Scottie Barnes to grow in the future is to be a power forward in the dribble handoff role. The guy who sits at the top of the key and sets screens, dribble handoff, and finds the space in doing that. Gets himself more involved, uses his great touch, uses his great instincts. Last season in particular didn't show a lot of great strides in the handling department or getting past people in one-on-one scenarios. Where he did have success, for sure, was initiating the offense in full court sets. And there was one particular game against Atlanta. Somebody mentioned it last year, was it Halloween last year where we played against Atlanta? Barnes played point guard because Fred was out. We crushed them. Atlanta never got set in that game. Atlanta never got themselves set defensively. So Barnes ran wild. He was excellent at initiating the offense. But the more we saw Barnes in that sort of role in half-court settings, there just wasn't enough in his game, in his bag, to make defenses worry about him. So he ended up being guarded like, respectfully, Draymond Green, Russell Westbrook, Ben Simmons. They just didn't guard him. If he's on the perimeter, they just didn't guard him. Barnes could hit like his, above the break catch and shoot threes from now and then, but off the dribble, he never had to worry about that. So not having the jump shot there kind of diminishes his abilities on offense in the point guard slot in half court because, okay, he runs a pick and roll. You can go under the screen. You can dare him to shoot, which constricts your teammate's space. It constricts the areas in which Scottie Barnes can attack. You don't see that as much in the forward slot. And what was a lot better about Barnes in his first year compared to his second year was his ability to cut. So Siakam has the ball in his hands, double comes, bam, cutting Scottie Barnes, gets himself open, finishes. Scottie Barnes in post moves. Those were great. But Scottie Barnes wasn't really finishing. In fact, he was extraordinarily inefficient in the post in the most recent season, which needs to improve. But I think ultimately, players that I would like to emulate his game around, and I know these are all, two of these guys are power forwards turned centers. I don't want him to be a center, but the way Sabonis plays, the way Bam Adebayo plays, to a degree, this maybe is a better way. A more talented version offensively of what Draymond Green is. That sort of role where you're very heavily involved in the offense, using your smarts, but maybe it's not all about what you can do with the ball in your hands, but how you can manipulate the defenses to make more opportune sets for your teammates. And by having the extra talent, you roll off the screens and you get some spots in mid-range where you can do your work. Get inside, post up, get to the rim. So I think that's why I've always seen Scottie Barnes more as a forward. Just because he played point guard in college doesn't mean he can play as a point guard necessarily as well in the NBA. But as Nutica says in the comments there, Darko wants the ball in Scottie's hands more. And that's what we're going to get because he's likely going to be the point guard. So with all these things I've said, as I mentioned, it looks like out of necessity, we're going to have to put Scottie Barnes in the point guard position. So Scottie Barnes at point guard, what can we do with all these tools to help make him more successful in this position? Because if Scottie Barnes is playing simple pick and rolls in the half court on offense, the defense is going to go under the screens. They're not going to guard him. He's going to have no space because he has no jump shot. This is like what made Fred VanVleet successful. Fred VanVleet You can't go under the screen because he'll fry you with a jump shot. So you have to worry about that, which opens up space for his teammates, which opens up lanes for help defenders and kickouts. Scottie Barnes isn't going to have that as much. So what a point guard needs to have out of the pick and roll, because there's guys that are tremendous pick and roll players like John Morant. John Morant doesn't have a very serviceable jump shot game. So we need to get Scottie Barnes into a spot where he is pressuring the rim a lot more often. You need to either have the jump shot, you need to be able to move the ball very, very well, in particular with passing, which he's a great passer. You might be able to do that. And you also need to be able to have rim pressure. You need to have two of those three things. So let's give Scottie Barnes the passing, the playmaking, the kickouts, because he is a very, very good passer. We can't expect the Scottie Barnes jump shot to be there this season. Maybe it comes at some point. We can't expect it to be there this season. So now we need the rim pressure to be there a little bit more. Finishing the rim needed improvement. So aggression is going to be a big thing. I think aggression, we saw the aggression. Like in fourth quarters, we saw his capabilities. If he wanted to score, my God, Scottie Barnes was going to get to the rim and score. So I think conditioning is a big thing. Having the ball in your hands, running the offense so much, having to be the point of attack defender, conditioning is going to have to improve. And I know that's something he made a point of talking about in his postseason press conference. That's going to be there. So conditioning is going to have to be a thing for the aggression. As far as the rim pressure, look, it's not going to come from playing one-on-one with players. It's not going to come from ball handling. So high pick and rolls so you can get him downhill. That's going to be one of the key things. Set those high pick and rolls. Yes, they're not going to bite. They're going to go under those screens. They're going to beat him there. But if you're going to throw a point guard on Scottie Barnes, the size advantage is going to be there for him to manipulate the defense. He has to use his size to his advantage. If they're going to put a bigger player against him, which a lot of teams are going to do, then the athleticism needs to come into play a little bit more. But to use these things, these athletic things to his advantage, he's going to have to get downhill. So those high pick and rolls are going to be key. From those points, you need to have the roller. Scottie Barnes is going to have to improve as a pocket passer as well. Something that Fred VanVleet was wonderful at. The pocket passing game with Jakob Poeltl was sensational in the 25 or so games that we have there. But if we're playing Scottie Barnes as the point guard, needs to be adept at that, needs to work on kicking out. There was some errant turnovers that we saw this season where just unnecessary turnovers kicking out. But as a young player, this is a player that is going to continue to improve. Jump shot is going to be key. It's not going to be there. So the passing and the rim pressure are going to have to be there. It's going to be down to aggression. It's going to be down to getting this guy downhill. And it's going to have to come down to some guys hitting their shots as well. We've lost a lot of shooting, taking Fred VanVleet out of that starting lineup. The most used lineup is probably going to be Barnes, Trent, and Anunoby, Siakam, Poeltl. Poeltl's going to be there for the pick and roll partnership. Siakam's going to be in the corner cutting. Also going to have the ball in his hands quite a bit, of course, as well. But he's going to be in the corner. He's an excellent corner shooter. Got to get him that shot a little bit more often in the left corner. Got to get Siakam there a little bit more and cutting inside when Barnes has the ball in his hands. OG is a little bit static on the outside, but, if you're pressuring the rim enough, do you bring in help defenders? Does that leave OG maybe open on the outside? And Gary Trent movement shooting. I think there's enough there that even if you're playing off of Poeltl, you're playing off of Barnes in the pick and roll, there is enough from Trent, OG, who are amazing shooters, and Siakam, who is like just good enough as a shooter to maybe he'll knock down his corner shots. I think there's enough there where there's enough space for Scottie Barnes to be able to operate on his own or have to kick out there. So with those guys combined, not like the perfect fit here at point guard for Scottie Barnes, but there are definitely ways in which Darko Rajakovic can make this work. And if it does work, you're getting your best prospect the ball in his hands way more often and see where that takes him. Maybe you make some tinkers. Again, I think that his best role is like playing like Jokic does on offense, playing like Sabonis does on offense, playing like Bam Adebayo, Draymond Green do on offense. I think that's his best role right now. But, you're trying some things, you're experimenting with things. So let's see how this works. If it doesn't work, we make adjustments. Does that mean Schourder starts and you put Barnes back and forward? Maybe. But out of necessity, let's see how this thing goes with Scottie Barnes in the point guard position, because I think it could be interesting. And again, if it does work, you have an amazing prospect on your hands, and this could turn out to be a very beneficial switch to his game, which makes me a little bit excited.